Number 70 on the list is Firefighter FD18 for the PS2. And unlike any other game on this list, this game is literally about firefighting. You go through a bunch of scenarios putting out fires while trying to save civilians. It's pretty straightforward. You have a few tools at your disposal other than your hose, like an axe, which at least helps to keep the game from getting repetitive. The most amazing and also absolutely nonsensical thing in this game is that you actually have to fight a fire boss at the end of each area. And that's exactly what it sounds like. You fight fire, but in boss form. It's hilarious because it even has a health bar. Despite all this game is a ton of fun and never takes itself too seriously. This is the first of 2 Mario Karts on my list, this one being Mario Kart Super Circuit for the GBA. At the time, I wanted a GBA specifically for this game. My sister actually got me a GBA and this game for Christmas of 2001, and I can honestly say that this title did not disappoint. It featured 20 brand new tracks as well as 20 more from the SNES's Super Mario Kart. I was so impressed by how much content was in the game. The graphics looked amazing, the music was extremely catchy, and with so many tracks the single player was very robust. The game also had multiplayer, where up to 4 people could link up and play using only 1 copy of the game. It only allowed a handful of tracks to be played, but it was still a cool addition in an already content-filled game. Coming in at number 68 is Animal Crossing Wild World for the Nintendo DS. I am actually a huge fan of the original Animal Crossing for the GameCube. It will show up much later on my list. So when this was released in 2005, I had very high expectations, only to be somewhat disappointed with the final product. Don't get me wrong, this is still an awesome title or it wouldn't be showing up on my list. The game featured the same great freedom as the original, but the only issue was that it didn't do anything to improve on the original. It's basically the same game. Still, if you haven't ever played an Animal Crossing title before, this might be the best place to start, as it's the perfect type of game for a handheld. Next up is L.A. Noire, released for the PS3, 360, and PC in 2011. This game was all about style. Taking place in 1940s Los Angeles, you felt like you were transported to that time. The big talk leading up to the game's release was the impressive technology used to capture the facial expressions of the characters in the game. The technology is called motion scan, where the actors portraying the characters in the game were recorded by 32 surrounding cameras. It wasn't just used for presentation purposes. It was actually an integral part of the gameplay, as you had to interview suspects and witnesses, and by reading their facial expressions and mannerisms, you decided if they were telling the truth or lying. The game had a huge open world, but don't expect this to be like GTA. This game is much slower and actually doesn't feature much gunplay. But don't let that throw you off. This game was a lot of fun and probably the most original open world game I have ever played. In at number 66 is my favorite iOS game of all time, the charming Tiny Wings. As is the case with most iPhone games, the gameplay is extremely simple. You play as a little bird who can fly off the scenery by touching and holding the screen at certain times. Despite being simple, you really have to get into a certain groove to master this game and get high scores. And when you get your timing perfect and everything is going great, it honestly gives you a euphoric feeling that I can't say is the case with any other iPhone game. It also helps that this game looks beautiful. It's very colorful and heartwarming. It also features such pleasant music and delightful sound effects that I would consider anybody who hates this game to have no heart. It's honestly the best 99 cents you'll ever spend. This list doesn't feature many licensed games because for the most part licensed games are pretty bad. But that is not the case with number 65, which is Animaniacs for the Sega Genesis. The Genesis was my first ever home console, and Animaniacs was the first title I owned for it. I love the show and I believe it translated beautifully over to the video game universe. The game looked like the show and let you change between the 3 main characters on the go. Each character had his or her unique ability which you would need in order to progress. Other than that, it was a standard platformer that was a lot of fun. I remember a time when plastic instruments were all the rage, and the best game in that category was Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock. What made this the best Guitar Hero? Well, to be honest, it was the first one I played, so there might be some bias there. And there haven't been many changes between versions, which could be the reason why this series is dead today. The soundtrack was awesome, and one of the bonus songs, Dragon Forces Through the Fire and Flames, is considered to be the hardest track in the entire series. If I went back to this game today, I would probably suck at it, but it's still cool to revisit this important part of music game history. Professor Layton has hit again with number 63 on the list, Professor Layton and the Unwound Future. This was the third Professor Layton title to be released, so the stellar puzzle gameplay was just as good here as any of the other titles. What set this one apart is the story, which I think is the best in the series. It gives the Professor Layton character a lot more personality and really makes you appreciate him. And of course the other staples were here as well, such as awesome production values, extra minigames, and new downloadable puzzles every week. This whole series never fails to entertain. Number 62 is the beautiful Rayman Origins, released for pretty much every platform in 2011 and 2012. This goes down as one of the most gorgeous 2D platformers ever. It literally looks like a cartoon come to life. Plus the music and sound effects help to make this game world even more amazing. Though the star of the show is the solid gameplay, which features an extremely hard, old school like challenge for all those who are willing to complete this game 100%. Some of the later levels can be so frustrating, especially the time trials, but when you complete them, it is one of the most satisfying feelings I have had in a video game in a really long time. We continue with another beautiful 2D platformer, the highly acclaimed Braid. If Rayman Origins looks like a cartoon come to life, Braid is an oil painting come to life. But the similarities between these titles end there, as Braid is much more creative and risky in its approach to gameplay, more puzzle game than platformer. Each level here is focused around some sort of time manipulation. One as simple as rewinding time with a button, while another has time move in the direction your character is moving. Some of the puzzles can be very difficult to figure out, and the story seems so complex that even though I liked it, it required too much research afterwards for me to fully understand and appreciate it. But something as beautiful and original as Braid doesn't come as often as I would like in this industry, so it holds a special place in my heart.